Thank you for joining me again. My name is Megan Halverson. I'm an autism and emotional behavioral disorder specialist through 916. We're going to be talking about another strategy that you can use on the fly. Today, we're going to be exploring taking a break. We want to make sure that we're building our toolbox. So if you haven't watched the First Then webinar that I put out, make sure that you go back and watch that. And if you have questions, make sure that you reach out and ask. There's a ton of studies out there about taking a break. We know that it improves attentiveness. It boosts learning productivity. It helps reduce student stress. I know it helps reduce my stress when I take a break. It helps your memory. Many studies have found that pausing for a moment to relax and reboot is essential for achieving productivity, success, and a positive outlook on your future. We know that in addition to exercise, meditation is another effective way to reduce our anxiety. It helps to boost that personal health, which is so crucial, especially in times that we're going through right now. According to the Mayo Clinic, meditating for just a few minutes a day will not only ease school-related stress, but it also fights against depression, fatigue, high blood pressure, and insomnia. We know that breaks increase productivity and creativity. We get those aha moments. Those come more frequently to those who take breaks, research states. Other evidence suggests that taking regular breaks raises workers' leveling of engagement, which in turn increases our ability to be productive, which is crucial. I love this slogan that MIT uses. It says, "Want more breaks? Want to be more productive? Take more breaks." There's a ton of links at the end of this presentation. So if you're looking for, to get into some of that research, make sure that you check that out. It's important to note that there are both effective and ineffective ways to take a break. How does this come into play when students are dysregulated? Well, we know that a lot of those lagging skills affect our kids. So we know difficulties understanding emotions and regulation, that state, difficulties identifying emotion and or that regulation state. So how are they requesting that break? What are they doing when, within that break when they're already up here, when they're already dysregulated? Difficulties understanding how to reset. So how to take a break and then move past that and get back to learning. Difficulties generalizing new skills or skills. And so if I learn something, am I able to generalize it across settings or with different people? And then difficulties with cause and effect. Are my actions going to have the same impact as next time? Is that break going to then solve that problem so I can move on? So thinking about those pieces is going to be really important. We want to be thinking about our students and thinking about what level they're at and meeting them where they're at so we can teach those lagging skills that they're missing. We want to make sure that when we're offering a break, we're providing structure. We want to make sure that we're teaching students what's expected. This will in turn decrease some of that frustration. We want to provide tools that students can use to identify what level they're at and tools that support their self-regulation. We want to encourage self-advocacy. That's a crucial skill we need. We want students to be able to say, hey, I'm frustrated. I need to take a break. And be able to use those tools effectively. We want to teach students to collect their own data. Like, how cool is that to go in and be able to monitor yourself? That's a life skill. And then support the generalization of skills. I just talked a little bit about that, but we want to make sure that students are not only learning their skill in isolation, but they're able to practice taking a break at home, in the community, in other parts of the building or wherever they're at. We want them to be able to use that skill effectively across environments. Here's an example of a break station that was done in White Bear Lake. There's 3 break bags here. There's visual sequences and supports throughout. So there's a step-by-step process. There's visuals on how to breathe, a visual timer, and we'll go through this in a little bit more detail. So you understand that breaks are important and you're like, oh my gosh, my students would really benefit from this. How do we start? Well, the first thing to do is to review your materials. You want to make sure that you have the materials needed to provide that structure for that student so they know exactly what's expected. We want to determine a way to manage time. That could be a visual timer. It could be one of those sand timers that you turn over that are, that have that predetermined time. There could be a watch that takes time. There's a ton of different ways to take time. We'll discuss a few of those in a little more detail. But you want to make sure that a student has a way to monitor when their break begins and when they need to end. Helping to see that passage of time is going to be helpful for that next transition. We also want to determine how we're going to collect data. We want to make sure that when we're collecting data, we're using it to inform our practice. And so we need to determine, is the student able to take data on their own? Is it something that they're going to need modeling? Is it something that, the staff is going to need to do? So we want to just think about how are we going to collect data and what tools are we going to use to do that. Then we need to look for resources. So we're going to think about things that we need to put on those break bags. And those were those bags that I showed you on the slide before that were hanging on the wall. A great way to get resources, look for donations, send a message out there. Anybody have any of these tools, Legos, Play-Doh, any of those things that you're looking for that you think that your student would benefit from? Take advantage of going to thrift stores. Look around your house, talk to your friends that have children that are, now grown. Do they have any of these supplies that they may not need anymore? So you want to talk to your support staff, talk to your teachers, your principal, and figure out how can I get some of these resources for my student. The next step would be setting it up. We want to make sure that everything is organized. We're pointing out that key information so students, when they enter the room, they know exactly what to do and they know exactly what to look for. We're then going to model and role play with our students. I'm a huge advocate of video modeling, so this is a great way to teach students what's expected. Otherwise, just going through it with you're showing the student how you walk through each of the steps will be helpful, or having a peer mentor might be a good strategy to use. And then we need to monitor and adjust if needed. We're going to need a monitor to make sure that students are using these breaks effectively and safely, and we need to adjust. That's part of our practice, is we want to make sure that we're finding any flaws, any bugs in that system, and adjusting and modifying as needed to support our students. All right, so big thing, think structure. We want everything to be, we want students to know what's expected. So by providing structure, we're doing that. Here's an example of that visual sequence of steps. So sometimes I get frustrated. When I get frustrated, upset, sad, or mad, I can take a break. And then these are the steps that I need to do to take that break. So this is, outlined for you. Here's some of those visual timers that I spoke about. And again, you can use any tools that you have. It's just going to be important if that student needs that visual support to provide that for them so they know exactly how long that break should be. Here's an example of break routine directions, and that's providing the words and a visual picture. Again, we have a wide variety of learners, so we want to make sure that we're tapping in to their learning style and what they know best. And so some students may need that picture. And maybe we take out the words. Again, it's knowing your students. And then here's one where a student would move the steps from do to all done. So you could design those steps within there, and then they could manipulate them. And that works for a lot of students. And here's an example of just some different break bags that you could use. The drawstring break bags are pretty inexpensive if you have a backpack or just a bag. But we want to make sure that those tools are enclosed in there. And that's a nice thing that you can use if you're generalizing or you're moving environments, that you can put everything in that bag and it transports easily. Here's some different tools that you can use to identify emotions and the student's regulation state. So here's what zone are you in? What color are you in? And then what tools do you need to support yourself? Here's a zone odometer. So students would color in the different zone colors. And then if they're not able to verbally express what level they're in, they could just move that arrow to the appropriate color or that color that they're in, or that they're feeling that zone. Here's a student check-in sheet. So when the student enters the room, they would write their name. They would write the time that they checked in. So you would want to make sure that you had a clock that they could read, so they could put that in there. They would check in what color, so what zone they're in, what time they're done with their break, and then what zone they're in when they leave. This is a great way to kind of take some of that data to see what tools are being effective. And you can look at this last column and it says, what bag tool did I use? A lot of times students will put that tool on that line that was most successful to them, and they won't even know that. So if I'm going in and I'm using maybe the Legos or the Play-Doh, and I feel that that's been, calming to me, and that's something that I enjoy, I'm probably going to put that on the line. Here's an example for a younger student. So they would put their name, the time, they would put the zone in, identify what zone level they're at, the time that they left, and then again, they would re-identify that level. And so this is something, maybe they don't know what tool they use, just a way to condense it. The lines, the spaces are a little bit bigger. And all these resources are in the file. I provided you the link at the end of this presentation. And then here's just how am I feeling? Students may need a visual representation of different feelings and different levels. I love taking students' pictures if they have that release on file. And you could put them in there. And so they're able to identify themselves in different states. So be creative. And if you have some good ideas, make sure you send them on, and I'll include them in our file folder. So what do I put in the bag? There's a ton of different ideas for resources that you can use. Bubble timers, fidget spinners, color sheets, a Rubik's Cube. I know my older students love those, and those are really popular right now with kids. Brain puzzles, slime, Lego creations, Play-Doh, magnet drawing boards. Those are those things that are similar to like the Etch-a-Sketch. I know that they sell those at the dollar store, so you can get those pretty cheap. Crazy Aaron's thinking putty, that's the little thicker, so it causes students to work a little harder to make those designs. Design builder sticks, those are similar to Legos. Water wow pens and books. Water games, those ones where you push the button and you have to either loop the little circle around the different numbers, or you have to get it into a certain position, a little spot in there. Mini squigs, mindfulness items. So thinking about coloring, color by number, mazes, those are all really structured. They really show students what's expected. Breather boards, Sudoku, crossword puzzles, word searches. Again, these are just a few ideas. You can, really pull in your knowledge of your students so you can know what works for them. That's going to be super helpful. When we think about putting things in the bag, I want you to think about how can I structure that? So a lot of times, for example, we give students Play-Doh or slime, and then 5 minutes later, we see it thrown across the room, in the carpet, underneath the chair, in the mouth. So what can we do to structure that? Here's an example. How to use putty. What can I use how can I shape it? What are different things that I should be doing? Providing instruction with those materials is going to be super important. We want students to know what's expected. We want them to be able to use those tools effectively. Here's an example on Legos. There's also different Lego designs that students can make. So we give them a visual representation of what they're going to be making. And in that folder, there's a wide variety of some pretty easy and some more complex. So we're really wanting to meet students at the level that they're at. Here's some visuals on if they're not quite there yet. Some calm down routines. So sitting on your chair, feet on the floor, folding your hands, taking deep breaths, counting to 10, great work. A lot of times we say, take a break. But do our students really know what that means? Have they learned the skills to take a break effectively? Are they just sitting in that same state and not moving past it? Again, we want that break to be calming, to be able, to get them past that emotional state that they're in. So they're ready to learn. They're at that regulated state. Here's some different examples of choice cards. So if you're angry, what do I do within the classroom? Getting into the green zone. Here's another way to structure this break by a sequence of different activities. And then taking 5 breaths. Sometimes kids need that visual representation so they can see the breath being taken and see the progress that's being made. Do I need to make all of these things? As I said, the good answer is no. There's a ton of resources in this Google Drive folder, so please check them out. And if you have any questions or if you want to brainstorm ways this can work with your student, please reach out. Thank you guys so much for listening today, and I look forward to adding a few more strategy on the fly webinars in the future. Thank you.